There's always going to be resistance to doing something new, especially when it's something that challenges you, like training and things like that. I think one thing we get confused about in society is we feel like we have to be motivated, you know, to put these healthy habits into practice.
I was just saying before we turned on the cameras, I remember reaching out to Jass, your beautiful wife, God rest her soul.
She was someone special, like for sure. And I think it's just kind of grateful to have been able to be with her and been able to have been with someone like that. Late 2021, she unfortunately passed away, and that was like, obviously it's the worst thing that I'd ever kind of gone through in my life.
Tell me about your trip to Ghana.
Oh, it was good. It was really nice, yeah. So amazing vibes, like really, really good vibes.
Chunks of life, chunks of passion, chunks of entertainment, chunks of relationships. So give me some more, give me some more, give me some more. Give me some more, give me some more, give me some more.
Hello, Jeffrey.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well.
Really, really happy to have you in the studio with me today. Thank you so much for joining me.
All
Thank
good.
you
Thanks for
so
having me.
much. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, yeah, doing well. Just trying to stay as healthy as I can, as always. Obviously a lot of life challenges in the last sort of year or two, but yeah, just trying to keep things moving forward in a positive way wherever I can.
And, you know, if you guys don't know, this is Jeffrey Boadi, and he is one of my favorite people that I've come across on the socials. He does really, really amazing work, creates content around like health and wellness, specifically like veganism. He's very good at like being informative with the things he knows and, you know, sharing that with the world, which is really, really fantastic. So thank you, Jeffrey, for your contribution to the wellness space. No, it's really amazing, and I'm really glad that you're with me today.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. First of all, I think it would be nice to know your background.
Yeah.
Where are you from? What are kind of your influences, or what have been your influences growing up?
Yeah, so I mean, I was born in London to Ghanaian parents, but if people ask me where I'm from, I say I'm from Ghana, of course. And growing up, sport was the biggest thing for me. Like football was pretty much my whole life. I was trying to, obviously growing up and, you know, looking at all these top players playing, I always wanted to just, very early on I knew I wanted to be a professional football player. That was what I wanted to do. And, you know, of course there were, you know, my parents obviously very much focused on me getting a good education, which I did, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But of course I always had my eye on football and how I could kind of make it, essentially. So, you know, as I was kind of growing up in my teens, I was trying, you know, playing a bit of Sunday league and hopefully trying to, you know, get some contacts or be spotted somewhere. Then when I went to university, I was playing a bit of semi-professional as well. And then after I left university, I went to America for a bit to try and play. Then I went to Norway and then Austria, all sort of in my sort of early and mid-20s. Then got to a point where I guess it wasn't really kind of materialising for me. I'd get my foot in the door at a few teams and maybe train with a few clubs for a little bit, have these open trials. And of course, football's it's a very, very difficult, it's almost like, I say it's an almost impossible kind of industry to get into, because it's not actually solely focused on your talent. There are so many different kind of factors and things that you know, right place, right time, the right coach liking you. So, you know, I'm one of many people who I know who are incredibly talented who, for whatever reason, didn't make it. It doesn't say anything about their lack of talent. Just, you know, it's so many people trying to play the game that it's a very, very kind of difficult industry to get into. So yeah, around sort of my mid to late 20s, I kind of started to think about other things that I wanted to do, but it was difficult because over my entire life, I'd pretty much identified with football. So that was like pretty much my entire identity, being a football player.
Okay.
So wrestling with that and actually trying to move away from that and break away from that was actually very difficult, because I was almost having to like shatter a part of my identity, or a large part of my identity. So yeah, that was difficult, but then I kind of found myself in the health and wellness space by chance, actually, because I came across a documentary in 2017 called What the Health. And
I had a feeling it was going to be that one.
Yeah, I've spoken about it numerous times. And I always do caveat it by saying that whilst watching that documentary for me was like an instant catalyst to moving towards a plant-based diet in terms of like shifting overnight. When I'm encouraging people to how they could shift, or what things they can kind of focus on. I do say that shifting overnight is probably quite a difficult thing for probably 97% of people to do, because I'm quite extreme in the sense that when I want to do something, I'll dive in and then I'll just kind of get my head around everything. But for a lot more people, it's probably best to make more of a slower, more sustainable transition. So whether that be changing a few of your meals throughout the week, taking animal products off the plate and getting more plant protein in there, that's more sustainable. So yeah, that was a journey that started in 2017, just kind of getting my head around things, reading lots of scientific papers, books, and experimenting with recipes and different foods that I'd never really come across.
Yeah.
And as I said, with regards to like social media and stuff, I hated social media. Right. I didn't like social media. Okay. I wasn't on social media up until I started doing all of the stuff from about 2018, when I kind of started getting my head around recipes and information and things like that. So it all kind of just happened by chance. I was like, I'm learning all of this new information about a different dietary pattern and health and well-being. Let me just start sharing my experiences, my knowledge, my journey. And I guess it's kind of grown to what it is today. Yeah. And I'm still just really, really passionate about kind of sharing that knowledge around plant-based nutrition, sharing nice healthy recipes for people to get into their diet. Get on these lion's mane and plantain tacos. These are very, very good, trust me. Get your lion's mane, and what you want to do is you want to break that into small pieces, get that into a mixing bowl, and add salt, onion granules, turmeric, garlic granules, paprika, olive oil. Get your hands in there and mix through. Chop up half a plantain into really small pieces, cook down and set to one side. Now it's time to cook down your lion's mane for 3 to 5 minutes. For your salsa, get red onion, bell pepper, green chili, coriander. Get that into a mixing bowl. Add the juice of half a lime and a pinch of salt. Now you want to cut your taco shapes and essentially just toast these either side for around 1 minute. Now it's time to build. Get some smashed avocado on there, your lion's mane, your plantain, get your salsa. Regardless of whether they're plant-based or not, because I would like to see people eat more plants. Don't necessarily have to be fully plant-based to be healthy. So yeah, just real passion of mine, and I just want to continue giving value to the community and sharing what
you're very passionate. I think we've even had a slight heated debate one time. I can't remember what it was about.
What were we talking about?
But it was respectful.
Yeah, I mean, it was always a constructive discussion.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I wouldn't even say it was heated. I would say it was just, because two people can have two different ideas, but respectfully have a conversation. Yeah. That's actually something that's very lost in society these days, where people think that if someone's got a different viewpoint to them, they have to cancel them, they have to, ignore them, be aggressive. Yeah. Like, you can be mature and, two people can have differing views and you can have a conversation. Yeah. It's just very simple.
It was actually a very pleasant conversation. I was like, wow, it's nice that you can defer in opinions and still respect one another.
Exactly.
And still be calm and,
It's a lost art in society these days, very much so. So, just kind of been doing that for the last sort of I've been vegan for 5.5 years, and I really started sharing around about 2018. Okay. So, it's been a process, it's been a journey. So it has, it's been pretty crazy in terms of the growth.
How many years? 5 years?
5 years, 5 and a bit years.
That's amazing.
So, I mean, in that time as well, I'd started my website and my newsletter, and just passionate about just disseminating the information and making it easy for people to understand, okay, if I'm going to get more plant-based foods into my diet, how can I do it to be the healthiest version of myself? Because I think a lot of what we see is, people creating really interesting vegan recipes, but maybe not so much of a focus on health. Right. And I like to see people healthy. Yeah. I mean, maybe some people don't have that focus, which is absolutely fine. But I think it's good to focus on your health as well. And I think whilst obviously watching that documentary sent me down a rabbit hole of plant-based nutrition, it was also a catalyst for me to figure out kind of all these other elements of health. How can I optimize my training? How can I optimize my sleep? Stress management, all these types of things, and really just kind of tying it all in as like a holistic kind of pie chart, essentially, and kind of putting all the pieces together.
You come across as very disciplined, which is quite inspirational. Yeah. Because wellness is not easy to keep up. I think it's I always get this quote wrong, but it's something around. It's a science quote, and it's something around the fact that we naturally tend to disorder. So anything that's order or anything that requires extra discipline and intentionality, it's harder for us as human beings. Yeah. So it's quite inspirational to see you like keeping up with how many times do you train a week? 4 or 5 times a week?
Yeah, 4 or 5 times a week.
It's just said it like it's light work.
But I think what that's an interesting quote, because I think from the outset, at the start, it is difficult. But I think once you get into the swing of things, and then it just becomes your life. Like if you think about brushing your teeth, right? We just do that every day. We don't consider, oh, should I brush my teeth
Well, I
or
hope
should
so.
I not? Yeah, I think everyone should, you should all be brushing your teeth, right? But, that's something that we, as kids, we had to learn to do. As kids, we had a bit of resistance towards going to brush our teeth. But then it just becomes a habit. So there's always going to be resistance to doing something new, especially when it's something that challenges you, like training and things like that. But once you get into the flow, you then have to you almost then see yourself, or you can't see yourself not doing it. I'll give you an example. So over the years, I kind of intermittently explored like cold showers and cold ice baths and things like that. But it got to December last year and I was like, right, I don't know if you may have seen it on my Instagram story. I was like,
think so, yeah.
Cold shower December. Let's do a cold
Trust me, I'm
shower
a follower.
every day. Let's do a cold shower every day in December. And obviously it was like, I was like...
Oh, in the winter too.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was very, very cold. But I've still been doing that habit now because you do it. Once you've committed to something and you do it, then it becomes second nature. So now I can't see myself going a day without doing a cold shower because I know the benefits that it gives me. I feel a lot more energy, feel more alert, healthy dopamine release, reducing inflammation after training and things like that. And don't get me wrong, every single morning that I do it, I do dread it. But once I get into it and I come out, I feel incredible.
Me, when I'm showering, I like it to be scorching. I want to feel like I'm in hell. God forbid. I want the pain of the shower on me.
I think one thing we get confused about in society is we feel like we have to be motivated to do, to put these healthy habits into practice. But it's got nothing to do with motivation because motivation is fleeting. One day you might feel, I'm up for the gym and feel great. Then the next day you might not feel like it. But if you allow your actions to be dictated by your mood, then you're going to be in trouble. So you have to just be like, right, this is what I've said I'm going to do. It doesn't actually matter how I feel, I'm going to do it anyway. And that's what discipline is. Discipline over motivation is you have to realise it's not every day I feel like eating super healthy, but it's part of my plan, it's part of my daily life as to how I live. I don't always feel great going to the gym, but always, as I'm sure you hear, like when people, you don't feel like going to the gym and then you train and then you come out and you feel great. No one ever regrets a workout.
Yeah, you don't.
It's not about feeling like you need to be motivated to do these things. You don't need to be motivated to eat healthy. You just have to exercise a good amount of discipline, consistency over a long period of time and not to expect results really soon. And that's how you kind of find your way into a good place.
I think once you start to see the results as well, you become more motivated. I think that's something that I kind of struggle with. If I feel like I've done a lot this week, where are the gains? Why am I bloating today? I went to the gym yesterday. Do you know what I mean? It can be a bit frustrating. But I think when you start looking at it from a lens of health over kind of aesthetics,
100%.
I think you kind of keep up with it a bit more. I've had my fair share of my wellness journey. I was a size 18 after university, went down to a size 10. I'm currently a size 12 and I've kind of battled with that a little bit, but then I guess when I started to reprogram my mind towards health over aesthetics and having the perfect body, I started to enjoy working out again. I started to enjoy food again because trust me, when you lose weight, there's a bit of food shame. You kind of get a bit scared of food and what it's going to do to your body. Whereas when you're approaching it from a holistic health point of view, you're enjoying your carbs, you're enjoying your proteins, you're enjoying everything. I kind of wanted to delve a bit deeper into what you said earlier about kind of having to switch lanes and the wellness space is working really, really beautiful for you. But I wanted to delve a bit deeper into the emotion that comes with kind of deciding that, okay, I'm not going to pursue this anymore and I'm going to go somewhere else. What was that? I know you kind of touched on it, but I want to hit that a bit deeper.
So in terms of my football journey? It was tough because I think it's something that I'd wanted to do for my entire life, essentially. And, I'd grown up just playing football, watching these, football players from a young age. I think my first experience or first memory of football, I think was USA 94 World Cup when I was 6 or 5 or 6. And I think 96, Euro 96 with all these great players. And I just knew I wanted to play professional football. I just loved football so much. So, I think going through the process of, maybe like, you know, having opportunities when I was kind of younger, but having to prioritize education over that. But, you know, and then kind of leaving uni and feeling like, right, now I've got the opportunity to try and go for it. And even though I felt like, you know, in my early 20s, you're fighting a losing battle in many ways, because, you know, a lot of the players that are playing at the levels you want to play at have been in the system from such a young age.
Yeah.
But that was why I felt like I had to go and be quite radical and go to different countries to try and do it. And, you know, I never would have expected or hoped to have, you know, try and go and play in Norway and Austria and all these other countries to try and trial with football clubs. But that was my journey and that was my path and that was what I felt like I had to do. So, yeah, I think the difficulty with, you know, being so solely focused on that, and it's interesting because I speak, you know, in terms of like having children and maybe having them adopt like a more rounded approach and being open to doing different things. Because when I was, as I said, growing up, just being solely focused on football maybe didn't do me many favours, because I guess when it comes down to the time where, okay, you may have to make a change now, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Because like I only saw myself as a footballer. So to not be doing that anymore, it was almost like, well, what am I going to do? You know, how is my life going to look? So, and actually that was where at that time I'd actually met, obviously Jass, who you know, who obviously I was married to, but unfortunately she passed away, you know, God rest her soul.
Amen.
And she was a very big inspiration for me at that moment, in that part of my life journey, in terms of encouraging me to look beyond what I'd only known in my life and be like, you know what, yes, you're definitely great at football, but I'm sure you could do something else, like, and it might be scary to think about, but you have so many different talents. And I think that's one thing that's really interesting, just to switch gears a little bit for a brief second, about being in a relationship, is that you can often have someone who can see things in you that you can't see yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
So, yeah, I started to see things that maybe I couldn't see in myself, in terms of communicating, like, for example, the health information that I communicate. You know, I then went to write for a health and wellness magazine, and because she was like, "Oh, you write really well and you speak really well," and these weren't things that I kind of
could see yourself.
thought about.
Yeah,
I was just like football, and that was it.
Yeah, when you're kind of what's the word? There's a word for it.
Tunnel vision.
Tunnel vision.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Just complete one-track mind football. You don't even want to entertain anything else. So yeah, but I think once I really started to see the fruits of, okay, I'm you know, developing a passion for this and actually enjoying communicating this information, then I just kind of just ran with it and just kept it going. So, you know, I think I never thought I'd be in this position where I am now, but I almost feel like I'm supposed to be here. It feels right.
Honestly, it suits you so well. Like, who would have thought you had to pivot? Because looking at your page now and the things you do, and, you know, with the writing and, you know, putting out the content, someone would think you've been doing that all your life.
Yeah.
No one would know the kind of backstory just on the surface level, where you've kind of come from and how you've had to switch gears, and that's really, really awesome. Yeah. But I kind of want to delve into something that's a bit more like sensitive now, because interestingly enough, I was just saying before we turned on the cameras, I remember reaching out to Jass, your beautiful wife, God rest her soul. I remember reaching out to her about her veganism. I met her at an event. I cannot remember the name of the event, but it was like this empowerment event, and I remember I believe I was invited as a special guest. I wasn't on the panel or anything, but I think the lady must have seen my work, and she just reached out to me and said, would you like to come? And it was just what I needed, because at that time in my life I was really considering, like, you know, similar to you, like, what am I doing? At that time I'd just graduated from university, was doing the sciences, you know, was meant to be going to do medicine, and I was finding this new love for media, and even now I'm even having another identity crisis in this space, but I digress. And that was where I met Jass, and she told me about, you know, how she's on this plant-based diet, and at the time she had just beat cancer, isn't it? Yeah. Were you with her when she was battling the first time round?
Just after she'd gone through some surgery, that was when we met, essentially. So
yeah, and I found it really interesting. I mean, really inspiring. I found it really inspiring that she had kind of switched into a plant-based diet so that she can kind of save her life. And that was really, really beautiful to see. And she just had this passion about her. And it wasn't in like an enforcing way. I think that's what you see sometimes in the veganism space. you're killing the animals. That kind of guilt and shame around it. But she really intrigued me for an hour. I kid you not, we were talking in the corner about this, and that was kind of my first encounter with Jass. My second encounter with Jass was when I shot pictures of her bridesmaid's proposal. Bridesmaid's proposal. I was like, oh, I know you. And she was a really beautiful soul. Yeah. Would you like to tell us, because they might not know about the backstory, but how you guys met, your journey together, your best moments, as much as you want to share, no pressure at all. Yeah,
so we met in 2017. We met at my sister's birthday, ironically, which was quite interesting. And it's interesting because at the time I wasn't even thinking about being in a relationship or even open to it at all. We just kind of just spent time together, and I just realized I actually just like spending time with this person, a lot of time. So we just developed from there, really. And I think she, of course, with her passing away, it's obviously it's been a very, very tough period of my life that I had to deal with since 2021 when it happened. But I can look back on it fondly and say that she, in many ways, completely changed the course of my life. Wow. In terms of just that kind of encouragement that she gave me, because it was kind of at that time where I was not sure where I wanted to go with my life and how football was going to pan out. So she was someone special, for sure. And I think it's just kind of grateful to have been able to be with her and been able to have been with someone like that. We loved to travel. We did went to Greece together a couple of times. We did Barbados. Where else did we go? We did some city breaks. We did Geneva, Amsterdam. Traveling was her thing. She had a travel YouTube channel as well. So we really did share some incredible moments. We got married in 2021 in May. Incredible ceremony. It was around about the whole COVID time, so it was only 30 people, but we still made it work in an incredible way.
Gorgeous ceremony.
Yeah, it was really, really nice. Honestly, I couldn't have ever pictured it to be as incredible as it was. So we shared some amazing moments together, and then of course, unfortunately, in 2021, late 2021, she unfortunately passed away, and that was obviously the worst thing that I'd ever kind of gone through in my life.
It was just 6 months into your marriage, wasn't it? You
never kind of expect that, because you always think that when your first encounter with grief is going to be your parents, because we always kind of equate death with age. I always think your parents are going to be the first to go. So that was obviously a very difficult moment for myself, her friends, for her family. You can't really pretty inexplicable to deal with something like that. I think it was a process of kind of really trying to just rebuild in many ways, trying to come to a place of acceptance of what happened. But I was committed to wanting to still try and live a life of purpose. Going through something like that, it's very difficult to kind of wrestle with, and there's no right or wrong way to deal with it. Okay. There were a couple of things that I did, a couple of books that I did read that completely I guess helped to validate my experience. Because when you're going through something like that, you kind of think you're the only person going through it, but so many people have gone through those kinds of things. And there was a book that I read from a lady called Sheryl Sandberg. She's the COO of Facebook, and it's called Option B. And it kind of documents her story about losing her husband while they were on holiday, suddenly. And just that kind of raw, unfiltered, emotional, vulnerable kind of account of what she went through helped to validate what I was going through, because I was like, oh, she felt like that, I also feel like this, and and I kind of started to see someone else has gone through it, and they've managed to find love again, and it kind of almost helped to give me almost light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. Another book that I read was a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Okay. And I encourage anyone to read that book. However you can get a hold of it, read that book, because that's a very, very powerful book. So it's about a guy who, he documents his journey in a Nazi concentration camp.
Wow.
And just having the worst human experience ever, being treated subhuman, his wife, kids, all that, dying, or being killed rather, and still being able to find meaning in his life and meaning in the suffering. Yeah. And those are really, really powerful things that kind of allowed me to kind of get my head above water and realise that there are things that you can do that you can still find a way to live a life of meaning, of purpose. Like, your life doesn't end here. And I actually think as well, a lot of the, I spoke about before in terms of the habits around health, I leaned into those a lot. After about a week, obviously it was very disorienting. I had to move back with my mum and whatnot. After about a week, I was like, I need to kind of get back onto that. I need to get back in the gym. I need to start eating my healthy food and whatnot again. Not that I fell off completely, but I just didn't have the time to kind of focus on it. So, being in the gym with my brother pretty much every day, because we know about the endorphins that when you train. Okay. So I think when you're going through something bad, you need to still do things that are going to make you feel good, even though you feel bad, because you can feel good and bad at the same time. Yeah. So it's like, I can feel bad emotionally, but physically I can feel good, and the endorphins are going to keep flowing. So I was like, I need to do that. So I kept on doing that. I was going for my walks, doing my training, things like that. And, obviously just, spending a lot of time with God as well, asking what he had planned for me. And I was just able to just slowly find my way out of it. And I know, there were times when I'd maybe just want to stay in bed, and I'd even feel maybe her just being like, look, just get up and go, get up and still find a way to do this, And I guess, again, I'm speaking from my experience. It's hard to obviously speak on the experience of others, because grief, I think, whilst it's almost like one word, is very different. Like, I've obviously lost a spouse. I don't know what it feels like to lose a sister or a long-time close friend. So I can't speak on that, and it's difficult to. It's actually even difficult for me to see, how people would recover or deal with that, because I don't know what that feels like. Yeah. So
it's a very unique process.
It's a unique process for everyone, and I've kind of just tried to do it in as best a way as I've been able to do it. And thankfully, my family really rallied around me. My close friends rallied around me in a way that I couldn't have even imagined. Like, even the social media community rallied around me in an unbelievable way. So yeah, and I guess I found myself to be in a good place, and thankfully, I'm with someone new now, and really able to kind of build a life with someone special again. Like, she's an incredible human being, and two things can be true at the same time. You can, think about some of the things that have happened in the past, and, even still have certain emotional moments about it, about, how you've had to get through all of that. But you can still also be really happy with where you are and where you're heading towards in the future, and building something unique with someone new. And she's an incredible person, because I think it's difficult. I always thought, as it happened, I was kind of thinking about being a widower, because it's quite weird to even say that. I was 33.
So young as well. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. It's weird.
So young, yeah.
But I was reading all of these blogs and seeing how other people's experiences, and just trying to just understand how it would potentially work for me. And there's a lot of people who have said that it's been hard dating widowers, because they're kind of they hold on to what's gone on before, or and there is a certain pressure, there's someone who had been before. Yeah,
who was obviously very incredible, and you guys were deeply in love, and they almost have to come and fill in their shoes.
But that's the thing that I think was really important for me to say, that this is not filling anyone's shoes.
Okay.
We're building something completely unique. Like, what I had will never be touched. What I had with Jass will never be touched, will never be compared. But what I have right now with my partner will never be touched and will never be compared, because it's unique in its own right. And just feeding into that. And so I'm just really thankful that I'm in a really, really kind of great place in that regard. And of course, that what's happened in my life, I can't ever erase it, nor do I want to, actually, because I wouldn't have. That period of my life with Jass was arguably the most transformational period of my life, and I'm sure there are going to be hugely transformational periods of my life that I'm going to encounter with my new partner, when we're thinking about family and children and things like that. So there's a lot to look forward to, but by the same token, there's so much that I have to look back fondly on. So yeah, it's a weird kind of duality, but I guess that's just my life now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I think there was something that Jass kind of said when we met the first time. I think she said it's either you went vegan with her around the same time, or for her, to kind of, because obviously she went through cancer and was healing from it, was healing herself, and you as her partner also decided to jump on that journey with her. Is that correct?
Yeah, so essentially we watched a documentary together. I think I wanted to obviously do it in terms of understanding about nutrition, but also, thinking about how she could, and again, diet can help obviously play a role in terms of your long-term health and things like that. So we thought that would be a great thing to do. And she wasn't vegan for the entirety of our journey. She did bring back fish and things into a diet, but still had a healthy dietary pattern. So yeah, I think it was something that she was, really keen on, and I was just like, really happy to just support each other in doing that, and cooking meals together and all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
that's beautiful, and I'm glad that you're in a good space. I think it's, like you said, grief is not easy.
Yeah.
Some of us we lose our grandparents, and we're like an emotional wreck, and rightly so. Like that's someone that's pivotal in your life.
Yeah.
Talk less of a spouse, someone who you've shared literally everything with. That's like the most intimate level of relationship, I believe, that you can kind of reach.
Yeah.
And to kind of see you bounce back in the way that you have is something special. Because I remember feeling, oh gosh, I was like, how's he gonna cope? And I know you gave yourself time, which was really beautiful to see. You gave yourself that time, and then you kind of slowly got back into like routine, which has been really, 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 really amazing to see.
Yeah, I think, I had to give myself that time and feel all the emotions and cried many tears, but I had to. I think what I didn't want to do was try and, jump back into, the stuff that I do on social media and try and almost block it out, because it's always inevitably going to come back at some point. So I wanted to kind of face it head on.
Yeah.
Obviously, as I mentioned, a lot of the training that I did and spending time with God, and did some therapy as well. I'd actually started doing therapy beforehand, before she passed away anyway, just to kind of just be a better individual, be a better person in my relationships, in life and whatnot. So that was useful as well. I did some other stuff. I did some, I've done psychedelics, can be very useful.
What's
so psychedelic mushrooms. So
oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So magic mushrooms.
Oh, okay. Fair, yeah.
So there's actually a lot of research and that's coming out around their use for mental health and anxiety and depression, and that was a really kind of powerful experience to kind of get some understanding and some meaning as to potentially why this happened and what my life would look like going forward. So I wanted to just try and do everything that I could to try and recover as best as I could. Of course, there were things that were taken out of my control. If I break down or whatnot, you just feel the emotions, you cry, but then I didn't want to stay in those low moments. They were always going to be there, but I didn't want to stay there. So, for example, if I felt like I was, potentially going to stay in a moment, I'd get up and maybe go for a walk or call one of my friends and have a conversation with him. And I think this is, I think relationships in general, just whether it's friends, spouse, girlfriend, whatever, if you have family, solid relationships are so important. Because I often think there are people out there who go through that kind of stuff but don't have the family to lean on.
No community.
No community. So I don't even want to know what that's like for people. So I think, I'm so grateful, lucky, whatever you want to call it, to have a good community of people behind me that were able to just support me throughout the whole process.
Very blessed, beautiful. And how did you meet your new partner? Hello, gorgeous people. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you would like to see the rest of the visual side of this episode, you can go to my Patreon via the link in my bio and become a patron. Is it patron or patron? Become a patron of my content on there, so you get some exclusive longer length videos or full length videos on there. Or you can listen to the full audio version for free on a podcast app of your choice, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so much more. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.
That was
Give me some more.